The next topic of the chapter, surface chemistry, properties of colloids, which was continuing before this lesson, is electrophoresis. So the next property under the topic properties of colloids we are going to study is electrophoresis. Before this we have already seen that colloidal particles have charge on them, and that charge is responsible for the stability of the colloids. As the charge on all the particles is same, the particles do not come close to each other to form bigger aggregates or precipitates, and that is why colloidal solutions are stable. In electrophoresis, let us see first what does electrophoresis mean. It is the movement of the colloidal particles under the applied electric field. Electrophoresis means the movement of colloidal particles under the applied electric field. Let us understand this with the help of this activity. In this activity, a U-shaped tube is taken. In this, a colloidal solution is filled, that is a sol is filled through this reservoir, and then a small quantity of water, which is the dispersion medium, is filled above the colloidal solution or the colloidal suspension. Now, two electrodes, that is the anode and cathode, they are dipped. Here also water is there, this side in this arm also water is there, and the anode and cathode are dipped into that water and electric current is passed. Now, as the sol particles are having either positive or negative charge, they will start moving to one of the electrodes. Now, in this picture, you can see that the particles are moving in this direction, that is towards anode. Anode has positive charge. It means the charge on the colloidal particles is negative. So the negatively charged particles are moving towards anode. Had it been a positively charged sol, then the direction of movement of the particles would have been towards cathode. So this is the movement of the colloidal particles under the applied electric field. Now gradually, as the colloidal particles will move towards anode, a time will come that if current is allowed to pass continuously, the particles will go and stick to anode. The metallic plate which is acting as anode will receive these particles. Now as these particles have charge, as soon as they come in contact of the plate, the charge on the colloidal particles will get destroyed. And as the charge will get destroyed, you can see here that the particles are sticking to each other, they are coming close to each other, and they will precipitate or they will coagulate. So this is what happens if electrophoresis is prolonged. If it is continued for a longer period of time, it can cause the precipitation of the colloid. So basically it is movement of the colloidal particles under the applied electric field. Here in both the arms, a small quantity of water is kept above so that the colloidal particle initially should not come directly in contact of the electrodes. They should not stick directly, so that we can see the movement. This movement can be seen by the increasing or decreasing height of the solution in either of the arms. It may happen that here the length of the colloidal solution in one of the arms is less, another is more. So as they will go on moving, so the arms height will change, and so we can come to know whether they are moving towards anode or they are moving towards cathode. So this is all about electrophoresis. Another property is electroosmosis. Electroosmosis means when through a semi-permeable membrane, the colloidal sol and dispersion medium are separated. This is a semi-permeable membrane. Now if current is applied across this membrane, again this is taken into a chamber and anode and cathode, then what will happen? Due to this semi-permeable membrane, only the dispersion medium will be able to move across the membrane. So dispersion medium will start moving from the direction of the colloidal sol to the dispersion medium. Why? Because the particles will try to move in the direction of the dispersion medium, but then due to the semi-permeable membrane which does not allow the colloidal particles to move. So dispersion medium will only be able to cross the semi-permeable membrane. So this phenomena is known as electroosmosis. So here we have completed with electrophoresis, electroosmosis. Now the next is the coagulation of the colloidal particles. The next property of colloidal solutions is coagulation or precipitation of the colloids. Now when we are speaking about colloids here, it means salts. We have only two types of colloids in that chapter. One is sol and the other is emulsion. Emulsion we have not started yet. So we are speaking only about salts. And what is a sol? Sol is a solid substance dispersed in liquid. When we are talking about coagulation or precipitation, we are speaking now here about lyophobic salts. Lyophobic salts, as we have seen in the earlier part of the chapter, they have hatred for the dispersion medium. The colloidal particles or the dispersed phase particles, they do not attract the dispersion medium particles. So how they can be coagulated or precipitated? Precipitation means bringing the smaller particles together to form bigger aggregates or particles. The first method is prolonged electrophoresis. Just now we have seen what does electrophoresis means. Electrophoresis means movement of the colloidal particles under the applied electric field. Now we discussed there also that if we are continuing it for a longer period of time, slowly what will happen? The particles will come and stick to the respective electrode and the charges will get destroyed. How can we coagulate a lyophobic salt? By destroying its charges. Charges will not be there. They will come and stick to each other or they will form bigger precipitates. So this is the first method. The second method is persistent dialysis. Dialysis we have already seen in the previous part of the chapter. It is a method to purify the colloid. So as we are preparing colloidal solution by peptization, which is done by adding a small quantity of electrolyte, which keeps the colloidal solution stable. But if electrolyte is excess, then it will make the colloidal solution impure. So in order to remove the excess quantity of the electrolyte, we do dialysis. But if the dialysis is continued for a longer period of time, what will happen? The dispersion medium or will be carried out, along with that the electrolyte or the charged particles which are necessary for the stability of the colloid, that will also get removed. So by persistent dialysis, what will happen? The charge which has got adsorbed on the colloidal particles will be removed. Once charges are removed, then the particles will come close to each other and they will form a precipitate. So this is how precipitation can be done. The third is addition of oppositely charged salt. So we have seen that salts are of two types based on the charges. One is a positively charged salt, another is a negatively charged salt. So if a positive charged salt and a negative charge we mix with each other, they will obviously get precipitated. The next method is boiling. By boiling, the particles will continuously strike with each other with the walls of the container. As a result, whatever adsorbed charges are there on the particles, they will get destroyed. The last method of coagulation or precipitation of colloid is addition of an electrolyte. As we know, the colloidal particles are charged. So if we add an electrolyte, the oppositely charged ion will balance that charge or neutralize that charge and make the colloidal solution to precipitate. Hardy-Schulze has given a rule. He says that whatever is the charge on the particular ion of whether cation or anion of the electrolyte, it will be responsible for destroying the charge on the colloidal particles. So higher the power with the higher the charge. Means, for example, if there is a negatively charged salt and we have to precipitate it, then as comparison to Na+, barium 2+ will have higher power and aluminium 3+ will have an even higher power to precipitate a negatively charged salt. So Hardy-Schulze rule is higher the charge on the ion, more will be the power to precipitate the colloid. Same way for positively charged salt, if it is, then the negative ion will be responsible of the electrolyte to destroy the charge and to coagulate. So for example, chloride ion will be having the least power, and as compared to it, sulfate ion will be having more power, and then FeCN6. This ion will have the highest. This will have 4 minus charge. So 4 minus charge is the highest charge. So this will have the highest power. Or in other words, we can also say that Hardy-Schulze rule, the modification of this rule is higher the power or higher the charge on the ion, the less quantity or the less concentration of that electrolyte will be required for precipitation of the same salt. Means whatever concentration of this will be required will be less as compared to the concentration of this. So that is also another modification of Hardy-Schulze rule. Also, the flocculating power can be defined as the minimum concentration of electrolyte in millimoles per liter, which is required to precipitate the colloid in 2 hours. This is the definition of flocculating power. So here these are the ways to precipitate a lyophobic salt. Now if it is a lyophilic salt, lyophilic salt has an additional protection. How it is protected? One is due to the charges. The colloidal particles are stabilized due to the adsorption of the charges, that is similar to that of the lyophobic. But in addition, lyophilic salt, the particles are having attraction for the dispersion medium. So in addition to the charge, they are also forming a layer. Suppose this is a particle, then it will have suppose positively charged sheet, and in addition to this there will be a sheet of dispersion medium which is protecting it. So if we want to precipitate a lyophilic salt, we need to destroy this layer of charges as well as this layer of the dispersion medium. So two things have to be done. One is destruction of the charge and the second is the removal of dispersion medium. So if it is a salt made in water as a dispersion medium, then some dehydrating agent can be added to remove that. For example, alcohol can be added or ether can be added if we want to remove that sheath of the dispersion medium. So in this way, lyophilic salt also can be coagulated. Now as lyophilic salt is more stronger or more protected or more stabilized as compared to lyophobic salt, it can also be used to protect the lyophobic salt. A small quantity of lyophilic salt can be added to lyophobic salt in order to protect it. So it is also known as a protective colloid, and this method is known as protection of colloids. The next topic which we are going to see, that is the last topic of the chapter, emulsions. The last topic of the chapter is emulsions. Emulsions are dispersed phase, dispersion medium, both are liquids. Then such a colloidal solution, we call it as an emulsion. There are two types of emulsion, oil in water and water in oil type of emulsion. Oil in water, oil is dispersed phase, water is a dispersion medium. Water in oil means water is dispersed phase, oil is a dispersion medium. Example of oil in water are milk and vanishing cream. In milk, large amount is water, and in that the liquid fat molecules are dispersed. And in water in oil example, butter example we have already seen in the previous part. Cream is also an example. Now, as we know, oil in water, water in oil, whichever it is, we know that these two mediums, they don't mix with each other. So we need a third agent which will keep them or will act as an interfacial medium to mix both of them. So that is an emulsifying agent. Emulsifying agent for proteins, gums. Emulsifying agents are proteins, gums or soap for oil in water type of mixture. We have seen the activity on the other day where we took oil and water and we added small quantity of detergent, and we saw that they two got mixed because of the detergent or soap. Emulsifying agent for water in oil type of mixture is long chain alcohol or lamp black. Then the different properties of emulsion, the particles, that is the droplets of the emulsion, are always negatively charged particles, and they will show Tyndall effect and Brownian motion as well. Then dispersion medium cannot be added, means if you if you are adding a dispersion medium to small quantity of the colloid. For example, milk is there. In milk you add a little bit of water. They too will mix properly. But if you are adding the dispersed phase, that is here if you add fat, if you add a little quantity of ghee in milk, it will not mix with the milk. Getting it? So you can add a little bit of dispersion medium, but you cannot add dispersed phase into the emulsion. Same way butter is there. You add water, it will not get mixed. But if you will add a little fat or cream to that butter, it will easily mix with that. So a dispersion medium can be added in small quantities to the emulsion, but not the dispersed phase. Then coagulation can be done by boiling, freezing, centrifugation, etc. So in the same way, like how we can coagulate the salt, we can coagulate or we can destroy or we can remove it, the two medium by boiling, or we can do freezing, or we can do centrifugation, etc. So this is all about emulsions. The last but not the least topic of the chapter is where all we can see colloids around us. Yes, so we can see in the action of delta. You must have heard about the deltas which are found at the mouth of the, where the sea and the river meet with each other. So the sea, that is like how the Ganga, when it reaches to the Bay of Bengal, so its speed becomes slow. Why? Because it is carrying all that silt with it. The clay particles are there. And now when it reaches to the mouth of the sea has a lot of electrolytes. So those electrolytes will remove the charge on the colloidal particles of the clay and it will coagulate. So lot of silt will get deposited. It will become bigger particles or precipitate and it will get deposited there, and this will lead to the formation of delta. Some type of food are also colloid. For example, halwa is there, cooked dal is there, or milkshakes are there. These are all examples of colloids in day-to-day life. Then clotting of blood. We know that if we get a cut or a wound, if we apply some amount of ferric chloride over there or alum, then coagulation will take place and the blood will clot. So we know that blood is a colloid, and alum or ferric chloride, it is an electrolyte. So we know that electrolyte can make the colloid precipitate or coagulate. So that is how the coagulation takes place, and the oozing out of blood from the wound, it gets stopped. Then fog, mist formation in the atmosphere, these are all examples of colloids. So even artificial rain, we can do it by spraying charged sand over the clouds, by taking the flying jets over the clouds and then spraying charged sand. So it will cause the coagulation of the clouds and it will cause the rain to occur. So artificial rain is also one of the colloidal phenomena which is taking place. Then applications of colloid. So in our day-to-day life, we can use this concept to carry out many different things. Like for example, a quatrille precipitator. In chimneys, there can be electrodes fitted. So that is a quatrille precipitator. So whatever charge on the particles of the smoke which is coming out from the chimneys, it will get discharged by as soon as the particles will come in contact with the electrodes, and then they will become bigger particle and they will drop down in the chimney itself or the precipitator itself, and the clean gas will go out. Then tanning of leather. Leather, the hide of the animals, the skin of the animals, which is also charged. So if it is treated with tannin, then that coagulation takes place and the pores they get filled up, and this is how hide can be changed into a leather. There chromium salts are used for this purpose. Then photography, development of photographs and all, there also it is a colloidal phenomena. So like this, there are more examples which are given in your NCERT. You can go through those. If you don't understand any of them, then you can just contact me, you can call me. So finally we have come to the end of this chapter, that is surface chemistry, and the next chapter we will start through our Zoom class. Yes, definitely from chemistry part 1 itself. So we will start the next topic of, or the next chapter in the next online class most probably.